And here we are. This is where we're going to start. So I am the woman known as Laura J. of the family Hamilton, which is my last name, which is the legal name, which is the only part of my name that actually belongs to the corporate entity of the Vatican. And so I separate it because when we put things into brackets, that actually makes it not part of the page or the sentence that we can see. Even though we commonly don't see that, now you will, because you'll be aware to be wary of it. So this is how we're going to be weaving stronger inner webs, which is an acronym that I look forward to digging into with you, because stronger inner webs require self-worth, self-esteem, self-belief, and a sense of security. So what you'll notice is that through all of the insanity of these last few years, we have been seriously lacking the promotion of self-belief. And instead, we've been told to turn our power outside of us, to give it to others who know best, because the professionals know best, right? We can't do something in the law because a lawyer needs to do that because they got trained to do that. Doctors, they practice medicine, so we're not supposed to do that because they're the professionals that are trained to do that, right? Well, don't medical doctors practice and lawyers also practice? It's just one practices the craft of medicine and the other practices the craft of law. And then we have an opportunity to actually see that we are crafting our own lives. And we're doing it with the sentences that we allow ourselves to be part of. So whether those will be life sentences or death sentences is our choice. And that's the brilliant thing about all of this and why we're going to dig into the sacred sojourn of the soul. And I'm going to show you the diagram that I included in Fully Committed, the sacred sojourn of now, because now is all we have. We're in this moment now together. Yet whoever watches us be here together in this now moment is technically with us too, energetically, because all time is happening now. So even though it seems to be in a different moment, that future now is simultaneously happening now, because time is actually not linear. It's like a multi-dimensional layer cake that is all happening now, compounded on top of one another, which is where spiritual law, corporate bylaws, and the Justinian deception come in, which I wanted to introduce in brief, because next January, or not next January, this January 10th, I'm actually going to be offering a summit where you can join and learn more about the Justinian deception. So if any of this sounds new to you, you'll find out all that you need to in order to fill in blanks, though not all blanks, because there's going to be gaps, which is gaps in consciousness. Because when the con is sent for your consciousness, you have to be willing to match it with your conscience, not with a dollar sign for the science that we would be conned by if we listened to the fact checkers that were paid by the corporations that orated rules that the fact checkers adhered to in order to approve that which they said was science. Totally off script, I know. But we're going to talk about the infamous story of Maybe, which I broke down in my book, and I look forward to sharing with you as Juan joins us. So welcome, and it's great to have you here as we get into the actual presentation, Juan. And please do feel free to use the chat section. The video is going to be focused on the presentation, which is short and sweet, but definitely deep, because that is the nature of weaving stronger inner webs of self-worth, esteem, belief, and a sense of inner security that helps us feel safe wherever we are. Because we then see the difference between the authentic self and the manufactured self, which I break down to be the cells of us that we fill with either fear or faith. And when we see the way that we have allowed our own inner realms to be either polluted or profited by ourselves or others, and then thinking 7 generations forward, because that's who we're impacting as we prepare, and the things that we do with our life, we're impacting 7 generations forward, but also backward in the lineage too. Because just like time is all happening now, if we think about the impact and ripple effect that we can have on the universe, which is uni hyphen verse of the one song we are all playing along to, if we allow our own heart song to come forward into this reality where we are calling into view the realistic evidence appearing legit in tomorrow's yesterday that reality is. That's where we start to see the authentic self that we can be if we choose to fill ourselves with faith instead of false emotion appearing real, which is why integrating lessons from past moments to return present is an introduction we're going to get into tonight. And it's not going to be able to go as deep as what it takes to necessarily clear the energetic patterns that may be limiting you at this time, but to at least bring your mind to be aware of it. You can then beware of those limiting stories that might be overshadowing you, and we can go deeper. And it's really like unpeeling an onion, like the ogre from Shrek, right? Like we've got to unpeel one layer at a time. Or like, oh my God, it's too much. Well, I don't know about you, but I've been told I'm too much my whole life, because what we've got to do is change our relationship with all the identities that have been feeding off of the entities that we've given our power to, which stem back to our soul group of origination, our tribe of origination, which could be different because our soul's group of origination is on a spiritual, energetic level compared to the family or tribe that we were born to, that may not be a vibrational match to us who came into those family lines because we needed to shake shit up and actually shift things forward and backwards. And sometimes it's okay to swear because it actually breaks a pattern. It interrupts. It's cognitive dissonance at its finest, because it's like, wait, she seemed really polished and put together and professional. And now all of a sudden she swore, and that shifted my image of her. It was an identity that you had about me based on what you've seen so far, what you've seen before. But all of these things I say in order to jar those patterns that would just be playing on autopilot before we brought attention to them. And to know that as we go through this process too, we're going to have energetic reactions within the vortexes or vortices of our body, which are the chakras. I'm not interesting. So we would itch. Pay attention when you're interacting with people, pay attention to where things get itchy, what's going on, because this is a third eye. This is like vision, the eye itself. This is like heart, throat, right? When people start choking or energetically shifting energy, because our body is literally an energetic vessel. We are the keepers, the guards in the energy den of us. Eden, what if we were it? What if we were actually here to see that knowledge was what made us believe we were less than? Which is why the first thing we're going to dig into is the sacred sojourn of the soul. Now, the acronyms I've added to since I wrote the book, but just here I added the R for the rrr, that makes things more fun to purr. But individual needs necessitate emotional resilience, resonance, and respect were the first 3 R's within inner in the book, because resilience is about knowing how to emotionally maneuver. Resilience is about maneuvering. Resonance is about being the antenna. I see there's a chat. You authored this book, Juan? Yes, I did actually. This is my book, Fully Committed, The Sacred Sojourn of Now. And you can get it on Amazon as well as Audible as an audio program. And there is an ebook version of it as well. I created this based off of the hero's journey from a soulful perspective. So I was I went through my own process over 5 years of writing the book that took then 1 month for me to write in May time. I finished it May 30th, as you'll find in the epilogue, which I wrote on the 30th day of May last year now, since we are in a new year. And I then edited it over a month times 3 editions because I needed to get permission to use more than 8 lines of Marianne Williamson's poem Our Deepest Fear, which she granted me, which I was grateful for to have heard back from her team. So I'm really grateful that I got the blessing of Marianne Williamson's team for the greatest poem maybe you've never seen, but if you've not, here's a taste. Our deepest fear is not to waste. No, I'm just kidding. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, gorgeous, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve anyone. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. As you are liberated from your own fear, your presence automatically liberates others. I missed a paragraph. You'll have to go in and find out where it was. But alas, we'll get back to the fact that we are radio transmitters. Thank you very much, Juan. I do appreciate the congrats on getting published. And indeed, my identity became so vested in writing the book, it took a lot to shift that image to be able to fully commit to finishing it. And Fully Committed was the title that came to me in 2017 when I started it. And I was like, holy shit, how do I fully commit? How do I write the book called Fully Committed when, like, I'm not even in a relationship? Well, I was in a relationship with myself, not just a steady relationship then, but I just expressed that to show where I was 5 years ago, to be, committing compared to committed, and then to commit in the present, to do it so that I could be past tense published. All of these shifts are part of what actually I moved through in the sacred sojourn of the soul that you see on the screen. Because as a radio transmitter, we are sending out messages to the universe that are being received by the source of all energy. Call it creator, God, Allah, all energy, whatever you want to say that the all is. All should exclude nothing, which means no thing is not part of all. So aren't words just boxes keeping us feeling seemingly separate, when the truth is that we're more similar than different? And as we actually go through this and realize that after we've kind of been at home in the comfort zone of the known, where we're bored and idle hands make the devil's playground, and we get the call, instead of seeing the call for more, instead, we see the call was actually for love the whole time. Missed that one to get it into the book. It took until nearing Christmas and all of the paradigms and gestalts, which are energetic patterns that go with the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, our place in the world, and the people in it. I've had to unpack a whole lot because I've been through a whole lot. But my soul knew that I could do it. And what yours does too is that you wouldn't be guided to it if you couldn't make it through it either. So recognize that you will get the call, and the call is going to be for love, but it's going to be situational. So if you prayed for strength, God will give you strength by testing it. And then you'll know you have it, because until it's tested, you don't know. So we will be tested, and we will likely veil the unrest within our nervous system, realizing the nervous system connection to the energetic fabric of the matrix. The nervous system is literally how we feel our way through and don't know what to do, but we know because we feel it. And if we don't know how to read our feelings, which are the interpretations of the energies in motion, we're going to be in trouble. But if we know, then we can flow with them instead of resisting and trying to keep them pushed down like a helium balloon underwater that just wants to lift. Well, if we shift our attachment to the splash, it's not going to hit as much shit because there won't be as much shit around it to hit. for we will be able to liberate ourselves and others too, because we're not going to hold them hostage to the host of the ages of the past that no longer need be what maintain reign over the kingdom of you at last. Which is why then stage 4 of this journey requires meeting the one. And this is where we go back to the radio transmitter, sending out the signal to be received by the all, and then to return to us the cooperative parts of people, places, and things that will test us. And when we get tested, we will run back to the comfort zone of the known until we meet the one that believes in us enough for us to believe in ourselves. So if you are able to find a marital partner that supports you in being yourself fully, despite the title that will come with the union of one to another, who then become joined with a last name of a tribe that's a Roman name, that's actually part of the Justinian deception we're going to get into on January 10th, good for you, not because of the whole union and the marital change of status, but because I hope that you have someone strong to stand by you, because we stand stronger when we have someone covering our back while we cover theirs. Our front is their back and vice versa. And that's why we need to care about one another and help, so that we can accept that call for love through the situations and circumstances each of our lives present us with, to go through those trials and tribulations where we will face all of those denials of didn't even know I am lying. We tried to pretend didn't exist before and push down until now we can't stop looking at them because they're ready to be seen. So that's what's going to show up in the now moment to be resolved. Since the first time, that emotion of energy and motion that tried to get solved in the moment and we pushed it down, it's going to try now with momentums in the moment. Momentum, moment. It's going to be added pressure, added compounded interest when it shows up in the now from the past, because that energy at last has a chance to be resolved, because we didn't solve it the first time, right? Which is why we go through then the dark night of the ego. Night with a K, because we have to bow our knee to be knighted by a man or woman who's acting in a position that makes them feel greater. Well, if we look at title, status, things that would adorn us and make us seem to be more polished, a suit, for instance, as I often say about the legal fiction, and how the cards are hidden up the sleeves of the professionals who would like to play the one that doesn't know any better. All of those things can be taken away, because corporate liability does not extend to the man or woman who has left their suit at work and did not use their conscience while they booted someone else around. So anyone causing harm, loss, or fraud is liable, accountable, and responsible. And we're going to get into that, because no longer do all of those fictitious titles, entities need to be part of our identities. The entity need not feed on the ID I see to be my entity that is identity. You see how it connects? Right? The insanity is right there for us. And we're like, oh my God, this is insane. In the membrane, insane in the brain. You remember that song? Insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. I think it was Bill Nye the Science Guy. But anyway, that's where then we go into the dark light of the soul, where science and soul have actually had a direct role in attacking one another, because science and soul need the whole to be compartmentalized in order for science with a dollar sign to rule. So that's where the corporatocracy, or the attempted corporatocratic takeover, comes into the frame on the macro level. And on the micro level, we see it to be the fight within me that the Cherokee grandfather said to his grand one about the fight waging within, of two wolves, one being good and one being evil. For what is evil but live backwards? So all the ways that a good one would not live, the evil one would choose instead, because he was flipped. Not all light is equal. Love that has conditions is not equal to unconditional love. Light in reversal onto itself burns. And these are the things that we need to see, that the urn that is left in the journey after joy is extracted, those letters literally, we're left with a ballot box. That we're either letting someone else call the shots, or we're knocking to wake ourselves up in the phoenix process of death and rebirth. Death of the old self, identity that we identified with before we went through the valley of transformation, in order to then emerge as who we'll become when we return where we began and know it for the first time, for we have different eyes to see what we saw before from a different perspective, because the awareness, enlightenment, is actually a spiral staircase. Did you ever think of it that way? The spiral staircase, that we have actually allowed more of our energies in motion to move so that we could integrate ourselves into greater wholeness. Because I want you to think of emotions in a different way if you're willing. And don't say you will because I asked you to. Say you will or won't because of how it feels to you, because that's how you're going to test your intuition, which is the guide your soul hired ahead of time to guide you through this life. It's why we pay tuition to go to schools, to be indoctrinated with someone else's BS. Forgetting the intuition that says, something's off here. I don't quite know what. I can't put my finger on it, but something's up and I don't know what. Test your intuition, and then you'll be able to feel your way through the darkness of ignorance, and also dare to say, I don't know, when you don't, because there is strength in that. And when you integrate more of your emotions, then you start to see how in the moment we feel weak, insecure, or powerless, it is because a different aspect of us has shown up. What is a mask but a persona? And what is a persona but an identity, a personality that we present to the world? This one is me, but this one is me too, and this one. And all of these different ways that we show up for the screen, we actually show up for ourselves. We just don't express it. We filter ourselves before anyone else gets to see it. Don Miguel Ruiz calls that auto-domestication in a book. In fact, if you haven't read it, The Four Agreements, I highly recommend it. It's a Toltec wisdom guide, and I reference it in my book because the four agreements are: be impeccable with your word, for our words are swords that will either set us free or keep us bound in captivity. They are the wands that will spell cast, because it is our pen that actually writes the wrongs that might be committed against us if we didn't have eyes to see the lies, because our intuition guided us to places where we could be tested without getting hurt. So if anything doesn't resonate with where we are in terms of our understanding, we don't need to get offended and put our guard up and shut our nervous system down so that no longer are we receptive. And our crown can't actually be connected because now we need to defend it. And we don't want anything extra inside because we're fearful, which is a really scary energetic signature to have. But hopefully, by going through this process with support, you will be able to upgrade your signature instead of downgrade it, and then be able to contribute what you've learned from the journey you've taken to actually reflect that which you respect, because that, I believe, is how we let love be the guide that takes us to resolution and remedy of the lies and corruption, which is why my world got flipped upside down when I woke up. And we become prisoners to our own self-image until we decide to become the hero we'd hoped would free us to be ourselves. Laura J. That was a quote on the little board that was under my bed that I moved yesterday. And it's with the tree of life, I believe it is, that says, queens never tell their secrets. Queens never tell the secrets of her history, it actually says, which is significant because when I wrote that and the first versions of this, being a queen might have sounded desirable. And now I see how it is just a status that I want nothing to do with, for I am far more powerful, full of power, when I choose to be presence. Can a sense of inner security also come from knowing that meaningful change is part of your identity? Yes, absolutely. We can get more comfortable with growing and feel more secure in the stretching because we've done it before. So then we're able to trust ourselves not to break while we're actually snapping back like the elastic band. But if you're familiar with Maxwell Maltz's work in psychocybernetics, what you'll see is that we cannot long outperform our self image, for it is the elastic band that will always snap back to its comfort zone unless we make it accustomed to the stretch, so that no longer do we let ourselves just stay limp or to spring off and not continue stretching. So continually resetting our reticular activating system, which is the part of our brain that notices our goals and then can keep working towards them. That's a theory from Maxwell Maltz and Psychocybernetics, which is his book, that is really about goal setting and using our mind as the mechanism that actually allows us to get that which we desire. So, I wanted to say as well, the actual web itself, or webs that we have within us, are a reflection of our self-worth, which is we have to look at worth as value and virtues and how those are supporting us to be the W that allows us to win because we believe we're worth it, compared to believing that some values and virtues that we don't resonate with are the foundation which make it a rocky experience. So really just kind of piecing words together in terms of their letters and seeing how everything really does matter in the scheme of things, especially and including you. Like, you matter. You are making a huge difference in this world just by being you, vibrationally. To be the one who shows up to those situations the way that you do, you're a literal earth angel. You're shifting the planes of the ethers, the consciousness, the field of it. You're shifting it by being in it. So well done, truly. To you who are here, and I so appreciate you feeling it, and you who watch back too, because I think we all need to remember we matter, because we've been told that we don't. We've been told we're just numbers, we're just cogs in the wheel, but it is so not true. Because if all of us stop, that wheel doesn't turn. It only is cogs in the wheel when we are incorporated in a corporation that doesn't care about its members.